Hi, Lydia. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Nathan. So, Nathan, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh, Perfect. I'm a medical student in Italy right now, doing my Erasmus year in Germany, and I am pretty active from a space perspective, from space medicine. And yeah, I have been doing research in space medicine since 2016, I think probably 15 actually. So I am a bit active in space medicine too. So yes, that's about me. And I'm doing I'm an intern in emergency medicine. So these are my field of expertise. Yes.
Oh, what are some of the differences between space medicine and terrestrial medicine?
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear you well.
Oh, what's some difference between space medicine and medicine on Earth? Like, what are some of the challenges?
Well, the challenges, as you know, are really a lot, and well, depends also on what we mean by space. Because first of all, like if we are taking in consideration ISS, because that's also space, that's something. And if you're talking about Mars, it's something else. And if you talk about Moon, it's something else. So it's highly dependent from the environment we're talking about, of course. And so far, I have been doing research regarding ISS. So, for example, one of the interesting articles we have published lately was how to effectuate, how to perform a CPR in space. So like on board of ISS. So we did the guidelines for that. So like, for example, that's something which is a huge challenge from that perspective because it's totally different, coming back to your question, in comparison to Earth. So you can't rely on the weight of the rescuer. So you have to do things differently. So you have to figure it out how to work and things like that. And I was only a small part of that project, but I was so happy to participate. So like, to give my little contribution, it was mainly done by Professor Hinkelbein from the University of Cologne and Steffen and all the other people. So we put together a panel of experts together. And if you go through the article, you will see lots of interesting names there. So it was really nice. And right now, like also, I don't know if you're following with the Austrian Space Agency, that they're doing like an analog mission in the desert of Israel. So to simulate Mars and stuff like that. So we are there trying to understand how does telemedicine work there. So also there are differences because you can't rely on how things are going. And like, for example, to intubate someone on an airway management procedure, it's not as easy as it is on Earth, because on Earth you have your keep around you. You are in a very sterile world, sterile environment, very sterile setting where you can have all the time that you need, all the machines that you need. And that's something that you can't simply rely upon because you can't bring the entire hospital up. So that's also something. And also, of course, the procedure is toughened, like it's way tougher through the lack of gravity or microgravity. So depending also on what we're speaking about and where we're speaking about. So I think that the differences are a lot and depends on also, for example, I know a very interesting person here. Like I'm right now in Thailand, and there is a professor who has been doing research with NASA and ESA here regarding musculoskeletal things, and that's totally not my part of expertise. I don't understand anything about it, but that's also depending on everybody's expertise, you know that there are like lots of challenges, and also that makes fun, right? So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, it definitely. You kind of talked about a lot of the differences. I mean, like just the person's weight not being useful in CPR is something that makes a lot of sense, but people don't think about. And and also, here on Earth, you do CPR into the ambulance shows up. There's no ambulance that's going to be showing up on the ISS, so that transition is also kind of different. And you have non-medical specialists in a very stressful, different environment without the same equipment. I think the medical problem of space is definitely one we need a lot of brains thinking about. So it's cool to see you working on that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a huge thing because like also the use of defibrillator, it's like literally like, it's tough to understand how to do that. Also, like we were thinking about CPR, airway management, but the management layer it's really important too. So you have to think about how you can transfer patients from ISS or Mars or whatever back to Earth and give the second like post cardiac arrest care, which is not easy at all. So yeah, it's very what's fascinating, at least what I find fascinating about space medicine, because that's what I know about. Like you can ask me about radiations or stuff like that, I'll be like, yeah, cool. I don't know anything about it. Like, of course. So, but what I find fascinating about it, it is like it's such a naive environment, so such a naive field, so you can explore a lot. It's like we're all kids trying to understand what's that, what's this, what's that, what's this. So it's so nice. You can ask questions, you can search for answers, and nobody has an answer ready for you. So that makes it nice. It's continue exploring. I think that makes lots of fun. Yeah.
And as we send people who aren't in as good physical shape as traditionally have been sent to space, space tourism, the likelihood of having some type of medical issue, I think, increases a lot.
Definitely. Like the point is most of us has a silent killer inside us, and that's the high blood pressure. So like we don't know what's going on inside our body until like you can monitor it so well and things like that. And of course, before sending someone to the space, even if it's like private private people, it's important to of course have a very thorough screening and everything, and I'm sure they do it. But more out of shape you are, more not exercised you are, like less trained you are, that's the right term, like more risks associated with it. Like I don't know, if you're sending up someone who is more than 50 years old and he's not at all trained, or she is not at all trained, you can have way more of risk. That's why also I think one positive aspect of it is that, for example, with space tourism right now, we haven't went too far about it. Like it was easy to come back in case of an emergency. That's something. But yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, somebody has to think about it. Yeah.
And then also as we go farther, I mean, right now they have a problem in the ISS. They could have a doctor on the ground talk them through procedures, and the delay isn't there. But when you start going to the moon and you have a few more seconds delay, and then going to Mars when you start having minutes of delay, at that point, having access to people on the ground becomes less useful because
Yeah.
you don't have time to respond. So those people have to be more trained in even a worse environment than people here.
Yeah, totally. One, like, for example, with the Mars project we are doing, one of the things that we are trying to see is how effective it is to pre-record videos and send them. So there is no question of delay. And for example, you have to only go through a set of videos which are already being pre-recorded for every case of emergencies. But that, of course, needs lots of work and preparation. But that could be a potential option to the difference of time, the lag that you will have. But that's a very important thing. But on the other hand, that requires people to have many more expertise. So if we have to rely on an astronaut or cosmonaut or whatever who is going to the moon or to Mars, we can't expect them to be an expert in medicine, so be a doctor of medicine. So that means that you have already spent like 10 years of your life only doing that, and be an expert in whatever else, maybe have a degree in engineering. Okay, that means a lot. A training as an astronaut, that means a lot. So that means that you're already too old to do that if you're sending someone like that. But at the end of the day, I think that we are at a point of time in the history where we need to be like we have to manage to have more than one field of expertise to be able to, like, to go through things and to be distinguishing in what you're doing. So yeah.
And I was just thinking about this the other day. all of knowledge is like connected together, and we kind of use labels and specialties to kind of segregate it and cookie cutter it. But in reality, it's all related, So,
Yeah, totally.
um, so when did you find out that we were planning to send astronauts to the moon in 2024?
Ah, you just asked me when did I found out, right?
That's right.
Okay, I have no clue on when I found it out. Probably like when it was made public. So shortly afterwards, probably. But right now, I don't remember when was it. Like I remember as a kid, remembering to see in the TV. Well, as a kid, as a young adult, or whatever, seeing the TV about people searching for other people to send on Mars. I don't know if you remember this thing. And there was a selection of people who will be sent on Mars and things like that. So there was something I remember, but I have no clear idea of um, when I came to the knowledge of people being sent to the moon, like where Artemis and things like that. Like, but I have no idea when I figured it out, to be honest. Yeah, that's my honest answer. When did you figure it out? Immediately, assume.
Yeah, pretty much. I was watching, I think it was announced that we were planning to send people in 2024 instead of 2028 at a National Space Council meeting, which was being live streamed. So I was watching that. There was some rumors that there would be some type of announcement related to the moon.
Oh,
And so I tuned in. I don't watch everyone, but they're difficult to watch sometimes. Um, but what do you think about it, us going back to the moon?
well, it's a tough question because like there are some challenges that we haven't faced yet that we don't have a clear answer to it. So, and we have to also know which is the purpose of going to moon right now. So, because for example, from a colonizer perspective, Mars is a bit more achievable than moon to obvious reasons. But I think it's a good idea also to have like, it's like if I can do it once, it can be like, and it can be luck. It can be like, lots of coincidences. If I do it twice, that means that I'm good at it, kind of thing. So that's also nice. And of course, I think that going back after like how many years have been passed, like decades have been passed since the first time we have been to
49.
moon. 49
The
exactly. Okay,
last time
perfect.
was
80
1972.
1972. Okay. So I'm very terrible with math to do it like, like
I
this.
know.
So yeah, so almost 50 years passed from when we were there last time, and technology progressed like crazily since then. So I think it's a very good way to understand what's going on and to have a better view of what we're searching for and things like that. So sometimes if we have the right questions, we get the right answers. But it's important to ask the right questions. But like when we have been now that we have been in this field of space, like we have been exploring from several perspectives, and we have the technology which is unbelievable in comparison to what we had. So I think it's a good way to stay there and see, okay, this is what's going on, and we want to know this and that, and when we have to see. So I think it's a very astonishing thing to do. So we have hoping to get the right answers to potential questions we can ask. So yeah, I'm excited about it, and I hope it works, and it will definitely. If we did it once, we can do it twice, right? So yeah.
What are some unique space medicine challenges you think are associated with going back to the moon?
Uh, Unique. Well, I think that in comparison to what we had, the challenges are not many in comparison to when we went, because we have also better material to protect us with and things like that, and we have better knowledge. So things that I've been telling a couple of seconds ago. So from that perspective, I think that we are more, for example, more, how can I say, curious about what could be the risk. So like we are a generation where we take in consideration more risk factors and risks in comparison to, like, when like Neil Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin went there. So like we are more concerned about other people's health. So when we are sending somebody to some extreme environments, we are a bit more careful about it. But I think that at the end, it's not as tough as like, you know, it was when they went, because we are better protected from radiation. And also they are not going to like, you know, it depends also on how long they're staying, things like that. So as long as you don't want to stay there for like months, I think the challenges are very few. Of course, there are like, you know, the emergency management that you have to take in consideration. And I think that's one of the hugest challenges, at least in my mind, because, for example, the muscle shift, the fluid shift, and or the psychological aspects are things that we have been studying for some time, so we have a better awareness on how to deal with it. But for example, with emergencies, it's a bit like, you know, it's something that we don't want to really deal with it, but we have to be somewhat prepared for it. So I think that's one of the huge challenges. But on the other hand, I think that it's a very doable thing. Yeah.
So now that you know some of the risk of going to space and thought through some of the medical issues, would you still consider taking a trip to space that was safe and affordable?
Definitely, yes, because it's like we all have this gene of Ulysses. I don't know if you know what I'm speaking about, because it's something that Luca Parmitano, so I'm basically from Italy, so Luca Parmitano being one of our astronauts, I follow him a lot, and he says, he sometimes quoted saying that, like, you know, citing the gene of Ulysses. So it's like Ulysses being a person who wanted to go through, like, you know, the limits. Also, we want to do this. We want to go push through our limit. We want to see what's beyond the limit. And for lots of time, like millions of years, it was always a limit to go to what's above the earth. So it's something that I'm so curious to figure out, like, you know, to be there and to believe everything in first person. Yeah, so I would totally do that just to, like, you know, satisfy my gene of Ulysses. Yes, I would. You would too, right?
Well, before I started this project, I would have said definitely. But
Yeah.
as you know, we've had like the COVID lockdowns, so that's kind of like changed perception of risk. And then I've talked to a lot of people who I thought would go, and they have some fears. So that makes me a little bit more introspective about it, a little bit more thoughtful. But
Yeah, of course.
how far would you go? Would you go to the moon, to Mars, beyond? Like how far would you consider going?
So I think that the answer is highly dependent on how your life is going on Earth right now. Because, like, if you are already up with a family and you have your priorities and your duties and responsibilities down on Earth, even if you are a very high space fan and, you know, you want to do it, you will think about it before going. Like, if you know that it's a one-way ticket, you will think about it a bit more. So even if, like, right now I don't have that kind of responsibilities, I think that I would think about it. And on the end of the day, I will always have that nostalgia of home. So I wouldn't go beyond Mars, because on Mars, like, you can always come back, and it's also not that far from home. And yeah, at some point you want to settle down, also mentally have that stability and things like that. Once that you have satisfied your, like, you know, needs to explore what's unexplored. But I don't think that person I would go further. Yeah.
Um, Now, one thing I meant to ask you earlier was what got you interested in space medicine?
Oh, interesting topic. So to be honest, when I went to high school, there was this course which our high school organized with the Aerospace University, Engineering University of Rome. So they used to come here and we did some radio amatorial stuff, or we had a ground satellite station. So, like, from my high school, like, I was the only person along with the other two professors to be able to use it. So we went there in the evenings and played with it. And because, like, the University of Perugia, of Rome, used to send nano satellites like TigriSat or CubeSats, things like that, and it was nice to track them and things like that. So I got interested in space by like this way, so very easily. It was not a thing that I had since I'm a kid. It's something that I got like new, and while knowing about like the specifics, I was like, okay, that's really interesting, and I like that made me really curious about things. And as I always wanted to do medicine, I was like, okay, can I put together these two passions of mine? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And meanwhile, the space agency of Italy, aerospace agency of Italy, like put a call, like they opened a call for people for ideas on space and research and things like that. And I was like, okay, I'll think about it. And after brainstorming a bit, I wanted to know how the tumor cells evolves in space. So yeah, that's how it started. So I contacted people right and left. So and that's the beginning of my passion for space medicine. Yes, and it was really interesting, and it gave me lots of satisfaction. And yeah, and I could ask all the stupid questions I wanted, and everybody would have been totally fine with it. So yeah, I think that's how that's how everything started. Yeah.
Earlier this week, I interviewed somebody who owns a small sat company, and they're building a small satellite to put in orbit for a group called Teachers in Space. And
Okay.
you'll be able to talk to it using shortwave radio. If you have a radio license, and you can
Hmm.
put messages on it and get data from it and things like that. It sounds like the
Yeah.
project you were talking about is very similar to that.
Yeah, I think it's more or less the same thing, basically. Yes, because there's like some uh like you can also communicate, like take down the messages it's giving, and it's really nice. I actually did it like lots of time ago, so I haven't gone to the ground satellite for like 7 years now or something like that. So like I'm totally out of the field, but I remember that being lots of fun. So yeah, yeah, it was really nice. I think it's more or less the same project at the end. Like not like the reception part, not the sending part, because the sending part is really tough. And I always admire people who have all the knowledge to do all these things, because it seems totally tough to grasp for me. So yeah.
I know it was a while back, but did y'all actually have to have an antenna that was tracking the satellite as it went across the sky? Or
Yeah, like there was like this the site online, internet site, where you could see when it would have been like there was an antenna on the top, and you could see when it was moving through, like the same direction, so azimuth and all these things, when it was like going through that. And we would like just look at the hours, if it was fine with our schedules, and if there was one day it was passing through it, and we would try to track it down. So, and not always it was easy, because like it had lots of limitations as technology. So sometimes we're like there trying to understand, like the messages and to decipher it, but it was so tough. Sometimes we didn't totally find it, even if it was like going through it on like hours, because the inclination of antenna was not good enough or things like that. So yeah, it was really cool. I have to go back and remember how to use it and go through my notes. Yeah. Yeah. And how did you get to be a space, like interested in space?
yeah, that's a good question. Whenever I was in like middle school and high school, all my friends wanted to do two things, either space or computers, ideally computers in space. But when I graduated, the internet was just taking off, and anybody who knew anything about computers could get a job in, the internet related fields, web development firms, internet service providers, web application developers. Um, so that's ultimately where I went. And the interest in space, I think, started a lot with like Star Trek. I mean, just this idea of humanity, going between places and venturing out. Um,
Yeah.
do you watch Star Trek?
Yeah, I watched it, but like I have um a very little recollection of watching it. So I watched it like when I was very young, and I didn't have the occasion to watch it again. And I have a terrible memory with movies. So like, Yeah, but I have watched it, and I remember it being a really nice movies. So yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't until SpaceX started doing their stuff that I got back interested. It's just like, now it's really happening. All before it was sort of something that we talked about but never did, and now we're doing. I mean, like what
Yeah.
Elon's planning to do with the Starship that he's building here in Boca Chica, Texas, um, could be amazing. I mean, you could fly from Italy to Houston in like 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very like, it's always surprising how revolutionary his ideas are. Like, his team's ideas are, because it's really like crazy. Like, I don't even, like, of course you remember when, like, we sent the car to the moon, like, to the space, and was like having the footages everywhere. That was like crazy. Like, who would think to do that? Like, that was really nice. And I don't know, it's so amazing to see someone like, pushing so hard with his ideas. And also, for example, nothing to do with space, but Neuralink. That's something that you just say, wow, like, that's something we all want to do, but we thought it was stupid, but you're doing it. It's so amazing. So yeah.
And it's such a complex problem. I mean, it's going to take a long time to figure that out. So the sooner you get started, the better. Um,
Yeah,
and
totally.
yeah. So do you think we'll get to Mars in your lifetime?
In my lifetime?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Like
so.
just a few footprints, or you think we'll have like a city there?
Well, I think that from a food perspective, we don't have to wait that much. Like, from a city perspective, I don't know. Like, assuming that it happens in 50 years from now, like, we just have to look for like backwards, like, 50 years ago, what did we do and where we are right now, and assume that we'll be able to do better in next 50 years, hoping that, like, politics, climate, and all the other things will, finances and everything will come out together. We will be doing better than what we're doing right now. So yeah, I hope so. I hope so, yes. But it's also, on the other hand, it's not so far either. Like, it seems like so far for us because we are taking as a parameter our lifetime. But if we take the like, the absolute time, it's not that far. Yeah. So probably yes. What do
Um,
you think?
I think so too. I think we'll have people on Mars before 2030, but that's just me being optimistic and hoping the Starship actually works and everything goes as planned.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll see. I hope so too.
Where do you see humanity in like 500 years? Do you think, like, I mean, that's a little longer time period. How far do you think we could go?
Oh, well, that's like a bit it depends a lot on people's perspective, if you're optimist or a pessimist, right? So I don't know, like, to be honest, deep down I think that humanity has waves, like, how Herodotus used to say, like, the ups and downs. So depends, are we consider like what we're living right now is one of the toughest moments, like, we have to at some point go down and then go up again. So, like, in 500 years, I don't know where we'll be. So we could, like, will there be peace in the world still? Will everything will be going like this? Will globalization be even more extreme? Will people all be in a one unique nation? We will never know. So I don't know. I think that from a space perspective, we can be doing really good. Like, we could have a bit more of a clear idea of how our at least our galaxy works. At least I hope. But it's not that easy either. So I don't know. I don't know. Already, like, one of the things that I'm very curious to know and I would love to know is, like, for example, black holes, how things are and stuff like that. And will we ever be able to have the technology and the understanding to apprehend better how things work from that perspective? Like, it's like huge questions. So I hope we make it. I hope we at least get to understand, like, if how at least like, know how our galaxy works and things that we don't know about right now. All those open questions, and have other interesting open questions. Like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
It sounded like a step towards an answer, so that's good enough.
Yeah.
But you were talking about you think society goes through waves up and down, and I was wondering if you had any ideas on what may be causing that. How come society doesn't just keep going straight up? Why is it up and down?
Actually, I think that the society is going up, but with waves. You know what I mean? Like, there
Oh,
is a line going up, but with waves, ups and downs. You know what I mean?
okay.
Because if we take in consideration Bronx age and now, well, like, the line is going pretty up, I would say. Like from medical perspective, technology, instruction, education. I'm sorry, I translate from Italian. Education and human rights. So yeah, but I think that there is an upwards line, but waves, microwaves. So I think it's just because we want to better systems. So like, right now we are not happy about what we have right now. Like lots of people are not happy about the democracy, or lots of people are not happy about theocracies, if somebody's in a theocracy, or monarchies. So we want to change and try to change the status quo to understand how we can better it. So that means that we take risks or not take risks. And sometimes taking risks bring the wave down, and sometimes it brings it up. So I think that's one of the reasons. And we humans get easily bored. So we want to change things all the time. So I think that's one of the reasons. And I think properly, thanks to these waves, we can go always up from an absolute level. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, I mean, I guess another way to look at it is like tides. You have like the tides come in and the water level rises, but you always
Mm-hmm.
have the wave on top of the tides. So it's like the tide's always coming in, but you still have the waves on
Yeah.
the ripples on the top.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really nice metaphor. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or any questions you had for me?
Well, a question that I would have for you is, like, how did you come up with this idea? Like, what are you doing right now, and why and when? This is the question, yes. I think you get lots of this, right?
Well, I started the project in December of 2019, and this was before the COVID lockdowns. And I had been working from home for like a year and a half, 2 years before that. So I was looking for something that would get me out of the house. So I was planning to do all these interviews in person at like Starbucks or at the mall or on the street or wherever I happen to be. Um, and what really inspired me to do it was NASA was planning to get people to the moon in 2024. They hire a guy, his name's Doug Laverio. He's at an event, and he's like saying how he has like this lapel pin that he's counting down the days to the end of 2024, and how he was going to highlight it like a NASA person each day that was really contributing to us getting there. And for some reason, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to interview non-NASA people, non-space people, and create like this little kind of collection of whenever I started it, there was 1,840 days to the end of 2024. So that's how many interviews I'll be doing.
That's
uh,
insane.
so I started the project, and then the COVID lockdowns happened, so I couldn't do them in person all the time. I try to do them in person regularly now that we're getting back together in person. Um, but now that I've invested so much in the project and I haven't missed a day, I feel like I have to complete it. Like there's like no question.
That's really nice.
Yeah, we're almost
That
at two
dedication.
years. 2 years this December. So,
Wow, that's a lot. How many people, like, as I told you already, math is not my strongest part. So how many people have you interviewed already?
about over 600.
Over 600. Wow, that's a lot.
I know.
That's really impressive. So I wish you all the luck with that.
Yeah, if you know anybody else that'd be willing to have a discussion, um, even if they're not in space, maybe especially if they're not interested in space, because I, since I started doing them online, it's been more self-selecting of space-related people.
Hmm.
And so you have more of that perspective and less of the outside perspective.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, of course. If somebody comes in my mind, I will send the form to them. Yeah, totally.
well, that'd be cool. Well, thank you so much, Lydia. I really appreciate the
Thank you.
discussion, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. And um, I look forward to you revolutionizing space medicine.
I don't know, we'll see. Just I hope to contribute as much as I can. And thanks a lot. It was really nice speaking with you. Yeah, have a great day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.